Hi, my name's Elliot Slade, and I'm here today to talk about something that I'm sure all my social media friends know about. Everyone who follows me on social media knows I'm talking about this shit all the time. And I really wanted to just get it in a video because I'm not great at putting stuff down, and Twitter limited count. People aren't interested in reading a whole paragraph, so I thought I'd do a video. But what is that? It's my personal war on horror and the horror genre of late. Hopefully this video will explain things a bit more and I can express myself a bit more in a video. And don't worry, it's not just going to be looking at this for however long this video is. I have no idea how long I can talk about this for. I'm sure it could be hours, but I'm going to try and keep it below 10 minutes. Even pulled out my favourite t-shirt for the occasion. Anyway, so yeah, who am I? I am a movie lover, content producer, all that type of thing. Really, my love of film and I guess my intro to film and everything was the horror genre. Since a kid, me and my friends would go to charity shops and try and pick old VHSs out, 50p VHSs, or we'd search charity shops for any horror movie we could find. So I would stay up late watching these films from 10 till 4 or 5 a.m. I'd just put a VHS in until I got tired and kept watching them until I fell asleep. And this really helped me see a lot of the genre. And, I've seen the worst of it, I've seen the best of it, and I've seen all the in between. And I really love the genre. I think there's a lot of scope for it. There's a lot of talent out there. But my issue today is, well, what I'm going to talk about is the state of modern horror movies and how it's affecting the progression of horror. So, I think it stemmed a lot with Paranormal Activity, Sinister, the Conjuring series, Insidious, all of those type of things, The Nun, all these spin-offs and same universe type horror movies. I think they're good in a sense that they introduced a more general audience into the genre, because a lot of it before that was torture porn. So you had the Hostel series. You just had a lot of movies that were coming out. The Adventure Saw 2 or 3 and onwards. Saw 1 is fantastic thriller horror. So I think it helped open the genre up a little bit. But I'm not a big fan of these horror movies at all, to be honest. I don't think they're very deep. I don't think they're very well structured. They're extremely repetitive. But they did a good job in bringing the genre to light a bit more. And, everyone was excited to go see the Paranormal Activity movies in cinema with their friends. I think that's a fantastic thing, to go together and just, shit your pants the first few times. But we're still seeing that same type of film all the time. Like, how many Paranormal Activities are there? 6? How many Conjuring films are there now? 3, 4? In the same universe? The Nun? All of this. While a universe is good because you're world building and, creating characters, it's the lack of diversity within these movies that I think is hurting the genre. But a lot of these things are very formulaic. You have the jump scare and you have, the structure. Like, the structures in a lot of these movies is very simple. There's something going on, and it's the first half of the movie is weird things progressively happen, and they have to call an expert in who explains the whole situation, explains the backstory, explains the ghost, the demon, whatever it is, and then they solve it, and either there's a twist at the end where it's not over so they can do another 26 films, or it just ends and they make another spin-off of it. But that's the type of horror that's being put out every year. I'm not sure if people even anticipate it, but that's what people will go and see. So this wave, it doesn't work for me, and I don't think it's going to work long term. I think it's been long enough. It's starting to hurt the productions that are trying to be more creative, original, unique, in a few ways. And the big ways is audience reaction. So obviously this is all my opinion, and I think some of the best films that have come out in the past year have been the ones that are independently produced. A24, for example. When I say independent, I mean just not Hollywood or Blumhouse. You have A24, IFC, Midnight, and other independent retailers. So the top movies, I think, that really demonstrate this next wave of horror, or this next... the progression of horror that should happen is... You have The Witch, Suspiria, Black Coat's Daughter, Hereditary, which came out recently, Green Room, Anton Yelchin's, one of his last films. You just have a lot of these films that are really pushing the boat and trying to do something new. However, while I think this is fantastic and it's the right move, it's not getting the necessary, I guess, reception. Am I allowed to say that? Are the audience allowed to have opinions? A lot of these reviews for these films have come from an audience not expecting what's in the horror. Now that's a problem because horror is anything you want it to be. Horror is, it can be real, it can be supernatural, it can be metaphorical, it can be whatever the fuck you want it to be, and that is the beauty of it. However, these jump scares and, cheap thrills have, I guess, poisoned the general audience. And when something comes out that doesn't fit that structure, say there's no jump scares or there's no, violence, or a lot of violence, gratuitous violence, then a lot of people see it as a good horror, which I don't think is right at all, because that doesn't necessarily make a good horror. What makes a good horror, in my opinion, is the feeling of it, the atmosphere. I mean, dread. If you nail dread, you've nailed a horror movie. No matter what type of, supernatural metaphor, or whatever it is, if you nail dread, you've got it. I mean, look at Hereditary. Look at The Witch. You don't feel comfortable at one point in those films, and I think that makes an extremely successful movie. If you're uncomfortable the entire time, if you can't, just take a second to relax, or I can't even put it into words properly, but you know that feeling. It's the feeling you get when you play Dark Souls, when you're constantly wondering what the fuck is going to be around that corner, or you've just got, you're playing Dead Space, or you're walking home at night. It's just the idea of this atmosphere built around you that it doesn't allow you to feel at ease. The Witch is probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I mean, just go watch it. I've seen written reviews. The Witch's score and soundtrack was written by Satan himself. The entire film is utter fucking horror perfection. This type of film is I think the progression, but I think it's being hindered a bit by what I've been talking about. Why this horror genre that's, I wouldn't even, it is categories. I guess it's subcategories. Cheap thrills, jump scare, horror, but horror encompasses it all. Whatever. I'm rambling and I'm chatting shit here. A lot of these films, a lot of the ones I've just talked about, the ones I like, this new wave and the next generation of horror, are really struggling to break into this new market. I mean, I didn't see Suspiria Remake have a big release in the UK. It was only played in like 2 cinemas, and I had to go out my way to go and see it. It's 3 hours long. It's fantastic, but yeah. Hereditary, a lot of people I've spoken to just didn't click because they said it wasn't scary enough and that it was stupid and this and that. Fair enough, your own opinion, but I could do a review on Hereditary. The occult stuff was spot on. I think the progression was really good, and it did something very unnerving, very creative, and yeah, basically, it's not a movie review I'm trying to do here. It's not. I think because people then expect these jump scares that Hollywood and Blumhouse are throwing at them, that people want or expect jump scares or extreme violence in a lot of these horror movies. And the ones that don't, and the ones that have gone a different direction and have, created horror in a different way, are actually set back or negatively reviewed or just become cult classics within the horror community. My point is, I think we need to all have more of an open mind with the type of horror that's coming out, because the horror doesn't need to be one thing. Like I've said, it can be a lot of things. I mean, look at some of the best horrors ever made. I mean, you have number one, I think a lot of people agree with, is John Carpenter's The Thing. It's probably rated as one of the best movies ever made. Not in just in terms of horror, in terms of a good movie, but that's a film that entirely plays on suspense and dread. And yes, there are a lot of gory effects. There are a lot of there's a lot of death and violence, but it did it in a way that wasn't for thrills, wasn't for jump scare. It was more supporting the story. And The Thing really is something that you can look at and be, wow, that, if that was shown or made today, I'm not sure how well it would do, because of the idea people have of what horror is or should be. I mean, we don't even have a category for it in the fucking Oscars. I mean, Get Out was, a political masterpiece on the likes of They Live and Night of the Living Dead. They're in the same vein, and those films all told a story and gave a social and political message, and they had to lump it in the comedy section. I mean, that's a whole different ball game of, the genre not taken seriously. But I think at the moment we need to realize what's going on and really start looking at horror differently and not the way that is brought to you on the mainstream cinema. Just remember that horror can be anything, and effective horror is something that I think that makes you uneasy, that tells a story effectively and uses those points to support the story rather than cheap thrills or whatever, or cheap jump scares, or just cheap anything like that. So I mean, that's my argument, and there's some of my favorite horror movies. So I am biased here, and I can't tell people what to like or what to not like. Another thing is that people who aren't into movies, they just watch movies in the cinema and stuff like this. I see them saying to me, "Oh, I expected the jump scares. I knew exactly when they were coming. I'm just not scared of it anymore because you can tell by the sound, you can tell by the noise, you can tell by the staging of the scene when a jump scare is going to happen." And people are getting bored. People are really going to get bored of this. And where are they going to move? What, you're just going to get more violent and more simple? I don't know. I would hope that we're actually going to start move towards the smarter, well-structured, unique, creative horrors, inspired by Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, stuff like Mandy, and there's and other films like that have come out in the last few years. Green Room, like I've mentioned before. But we really need to start putting out there that the genre is so wide open, an idea, and it's going to take time for people to realize, because when people do get bored, they're going to start wanting new creative stuff. So hopefully people will start looking to these movies that may have come out now, and people may look back and be like, oh wow, I didn't know that came out, or wow, that actually was fantastic, what a new take on the horror genre. And I hope that's the move we go, and I really hope that creators start to realize that, and I hope that producers start to realize that. And I'm positive about this. I know Robert Eggers has got The Lighthouse coming out. He did The Witch. I know there's a new H.P. Lovecraft type film coming out from the director of Mandy. I think there's a lot on the horizon here that has the potential to spark audience reaction positively and reviews positively, so we can finally get to a stage where we can look at the genre and appreciate everything in it, and appreciate that there are sub genres within horror, and they're all fine. If you enjoy them, absolutely fine. That's amazing. I'm glad. It's fantastic that you enjoy a movie. Someone has spent money, and directed this movie, so that's fantastic. But I hope that people aren't put off by this next wave of horror, and that people really can start to understand what the directors and producers are trying to do, and change the audience expectations of what horror can and can't be. So yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to Us. Is it the new Jordan Peele film? Get Out kind of universe type thing. So that'd be fantastic. The trailer looks amazing. Like I've mentioned, there's a lot of movies coming out. So thank you for listening. Hopefully I'll get some other content out there. I don't know if you enjoyed listening to me here ramble on. I'll edit it as best as I can so it's not too boring. But thank you. Yeah, I'll see you next time for another opinionated piece on something or another. I'm sure I'll come up with something. I have a lot of opinions. So yeah, bye.